Hello, I'm Rosie Vision, and I like taking a look at entertainment through rose-tinted glasses because we all deserve some magic in our lives. And what could possibly be more magical than revisiting our favorite fairies at Alfea? It's that time again. We're watching 4Kids Winx. Yay! This time we'll be looking over episodes 15, Pushing the Envelope, and episode 16, The Nightmare Monster. These were really fun episodes, so I'm really looking forward to sharing my thoughts with you all. If you'd prefer to have an audio-only version of this episode, then look no further. The series is also a podcast, the It Feels Like Magic podcast, and it's available on places like Google, Apple, and Spotify. It even has its own YouTube channel now, so check that out if you're interested. But otherwise, let's go ahead and start going over the episode, shall we?
Watch the dub and open my mind. Believe in 4Kids. Time to unwind. Can it be true? Let's wait and see if 4Kids stuff can do everything amazing. Rewatching Winx, rewatching Winx, come join the fun. Rewatching Winx, rewatching Winx, rewatching Winx.
Let's have some fun.
Rewatching Winx.
Episode 15, Pushing the Envelope. As always, I am going to give a quick synopsis so that I can bring you guys up to speed. There's trouble in paradise for the Winx girls. There's a pop quiz in Wizgiz's class. And to make matters worse, Bloom can't sleep lately because she keeps on having dreams about Daphne. Bloom opens up about what she's going through, and Farragonda decides to take her to Lake Roccoluce. Earlier in the episode, Bloom discovers an envelope left behind by Wizgiz, which contains answers to the pop quiz that no one is ready for. And the Winx girls have an internal moral battle in order to decide whether they should open it or not. At one point, they all try to cheat, but they catch themselves in the act. So instead, they all decide to do the right thing and not peek. And a good thing too, because this was all a morality test by Wizgiz. The envelope was actually a trap that explodes in your face when you open it, and the Winx were the only students who passed. So hooray for morality. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about the episode, so let's go through some things that I noticed. First off, the stakes are way higher in this version. I'm pretty sure this was not the case originally, but with 4Kids, the reason why the Winx are so worried about this pop quiz is because they're told they will get kicked out of Alfea if they fail. Ouch, that is quite the punishment for not being prepared for a pop quiz. And the students are not taking it from Wizgiz at all. There's one extremely sassy remark from one of them when Wizgiz says that basically they should be prepared for the test because it was things that he taught them, to which the student says, "So if we fail, you should get kicked out for not teaching us well enough." Which, I mean, I understand where she's coming from, especially considering just how high the stakes are. And really, if they were woefully underprepared, then wouldn't it be the professor's fault? But I just found it hilarious that one of the students actually talked back to that extent. But at the same time, I don't know how badly I should feel for them, because shortly after this, we also learned that apparently no one has been taking notes in class except for Bloom. I don't even know how that's possible. I mean, I don't think you have to be the most diligent student in the world to write down things in class every once in a while. And this is the whole class we're talking about. No one took notes except Bloom. That blows my mind. Everything for the most part is pretty darn close to the original version of this episode. However, there were quite a few standout lines and little things I noticed. For example, Flora has a very cute remark when she's stressed out. She exclaims, "Oh, gooey gumdrops, not again," which I found absolutely adorable. And then, on the less cutesy side of things, the girls, besides Flora of course, are not the kindest to Murda, apparently. Musa wanted to dump her in a pumpkin patch, whereas Stella wanted to plant her. So really, Flora's the only one looking out for her. So yeah, that kind of sucks. And then to make matters worse, as he does in the original, Kiko tries to eat Murda at one point, but is thwarted when she starts fighting back. One small change that I found a little bit weird at first was the fact that they plaster the words Wizgiz answer sheet on the envelope. Originally, there was nothing on it, but you can see kind of crudely photoshopped or whatever editing they used text on it that makes sure you know exactly what's inside. And I guess it makes things more clear because I can't remember. I think they just assumed the answers were in there. I don't know. Or maybe they peeked and saw and then shut it. Well, no, that wouldn't be the case because it would have exploded. Yeah, I can see why they put the text on there. I can't remember how they got around that before. Maybe Wizgiz just said that the answers were in it. I don't know. That's probably the case, but just the way that it's edited looks hilarious to me. But it does make things go more smoothly. Another fun thing that happened is actually in terms of dialogue. There's a very cute reference to the opening song. So when Farragonda tries to take Bloom to Lake Rocaluce, which is named Lake Ephemera in this version, and apparently isn't a real place, but besides that, so she's trying to take her on an astro journey to go there. But I'm getting off track here. Farragonda tries to take Bloom to Lake Rocaluce through an astro journey, and right before they go, she says, "Close your eyes and open your heart," which is a very not so subtle but adorable reference to the opening, which I really enjoyed. It makes the lyrics feel even more special since they've been said in the episode, and it didn't feel too out of place because whenever the title for something is said in media or something to those lines, it often feels very just forced and cheesy, but I kind of liked it in this case. It was cute. I also liked that they gave the tiara a name. I can't remember if it had one originally, but in the 4Kids version, it's named the Ember Tiara, which fits just fine. And luckily enough, the sassy remarks are far from over. When the Winx are deciding to hide the envelope, they decide that only one person should do it so that they don't all know where it is. And Bloom volunteers herself since this was her idea. And she swears that she won't peek. And Flora does not trust her one bit. She says at one point, "Why isn't anybody else questioning Bloom on this?" Which definitely got me laughing. It's kind of nice to see some friction between the two. Obviously not to the point where their relationship is like just super catty and unnecessarily dramatic, but friends do bicker and mistrust each other sometimes for tiny things like this, so it was fun seeing this new side to their friendship. Another thing I'd like to mention is the scene when the Winx are sneaking around the kitchen in order to find the envelope. Originally, there's, I believe, a jazz version of their transformation song that plays during this, and I absolutely love that song that plays. It's probably one of my favorite songs from the original few seasons, but I actually liked the 4Kids version quite a bit too. The music is really nice. It bounces around styles a little bit, has lots of like suspenseful pizzicato, but also the really twangy and delay heavy guitar that we associate with spy movies, and it bounced around a lot and just felt a bit more natural since it was just instruments and not singing, unlike the original. And you could also hear what was going on with the girls more. So it felt really, I guess, cartoony. I know it's a cartoon, but more like what we associate stereotypical cartoons to be like. And I think it added to the hilarity of the scene because of that. So I actually did like how they handled that scene. It was different, but good. That's pretty much everything I have to say. There is one last big thing I'd like to mention though. In the 4Kids version, I think they made the lesson that Wizgiz had way more relevant to its class, which is transformations. In the original, I don't even really know what his plan was with this test. I think he was just being a sadist, which is hilarious, but really, what's the point? Whereas in this version, you could argue that although he was being mischievous, there was a lesson to all of this that is actually relevant to his class. His justification is that this was a lesson about internal transformation, how temptation can transform a person to become someone that they thought they could never be, which was a lot deeper than I thought it'd actually go and is totally true. People think things about themselves and the things that they would and wouldn't do, but at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, certain situations do change people. And it's an important lesson to learn. And Wizgiz is very understanding and doesn't reprimand the girls too much and basically warns them of this and tells them that they should stay true to themselves no matter what, which I thought was a really cute lesson and really tied things together to make a really feel-good episode that felt a little bit more explained than the original version. So that's all I have to say this time. It was a really good episode. I enjoyed it. Now for the next episode. Episode 16, The Nightmare Monster. Here's a quick synopsis to catch you guys up. The Tricks send a nightmare monster out after the Winx. The Winx are able to discover the existence of the creature thanks to Murda, so they hatch a plan to fight it off. Towards the end of the episode, the Tricks get caught by Farragonda, so she decides to basically tattle on them to Griffin, which ends up earning expulsion for the Tricks. So now they are extremely wired up and have a major vendetta against the Winx Club. And that's everything you need to know about the episode, so let's go through what I thought. I'll be honest right off the bat, I did not have high expectations for this episode. I really, really love this episode a lot, and I felt like 4Kids would not be able to do it justice, considering the fact that they're always censoring things, taming things down, and try to be as family-friendly as possible. And I'll have you know that I was wrong. And this is one of the rare instances where 4Kids does not needlessly get rid of things in order to please networks or whatever their reasoning was. I think they did a really good job with this episode, and I am glad. And to start things off, the first thing that I wrote down is there was an extremely dark joke that I was not expecting. This really does feel like something that'd be in a either like rated R comedy film or in a bridge series. Not because it's super raunchy or anything, but it's just not something that you associate with a kid's show at all. At least not your average one. Maybe something like Invader Zim. But anyways, here's the deal. The Winx are coming back from a horror film, which I thought was a cool plot thing they did to make them more on the edge of their seats and jumpy. So they're talking about the movie, and Bloom goes on and says that nothing brings a family back together like da-da-da-da, and she rattles off like everything that happened in the movie, which was a lot, including like zombies, and I think she said a tidal wave. All sorts of things. And then at the end of her little spiel, Stella replies, "And yet my parents are still separated," which I had to pause and rewind because I thought I heard incorrectly. I could not believe that they wrote a line like that into the show. It got me laughing quite a bit. I don't know if that's a good thing, but I guess it's because of just how shocked I was and out of pocket. And really, that does feel like something that someone who is going through something really tough would do. Laughter really is something that a lot of people use as coping mechanisms to get through all the dark and depressing things that they're going through. So it makes sense that Stella, whose parents are recently divorced and is really upset about it, would make jokes like this at her own expense. I just was not expecting it at all. Speaking of which, they kind of really drive home the divorce aspect in this episode. It was obviously there in the original, but not only does Stella crack that joke, but her nightmare is also way more focused in on that. In the original, the nightmares, I don't know if it's the same for the Italian version, but at least for the Cinelume version, they show everything that happens in the nightmare, but there's almost no dialogue, and you kind of have to read in between the lines in order to figure out what exactly they're most afraid of. But 4Kids completely alleviates this and spells it out for you, which normally would be a bad thing, show don't tell. But I think in this case, it actually worked well because it was kind of vague before. So to explain, right before Stella's nightmare, she hears her parents talking about the divorce in her head, and the thoughts are just going through one by one super quickly back and forth, and then it goes to her nightmare, where the dialogue is a lot more centered on her fears of being left behind and not wanting her parents to be separated. And then we even get to the mirror scene where she's staring at herself. They expand on this by saying how Stella's super pretty on the outside, but on the inside, she's just a loser, which really expands on our insecurities that are never really spoken too much in Winx Club outside of 4Kids until we got to World of Winx, where we had a similar scene. She was being shown a vision by Obscura where she was being bullied by kids for just not fitting in, I guess. And it showcases how she kind of does have this internal complex where she feels like she isn't good enough and has to prove herself to everyone else. Whereas here in the 4Kids version of this episode, they straight up say it. And I think it's honestly a good thing that they did. It didn't feel forced or anything, and it added a lot more to her character, which I am really glad of. And then to top things off, the scream that Stella lets out after this was really, really good. I was not prepared for the kind of scream that they gave. I'll play it for you now so you know what I mean.
What is it?
So yeah, that is a horror film level scream. And honestly, when it comes to horror films, the scream, at least from what I've seen, I don't really watch them, the screams don't feel genuine, but it actually feels genuine here. So kudos to the voice actress for doing a great job. If I heard that when I was younger, that would have really made my skin crawl. Going through the other nightmares, similarly to Stella, they add more context to what's going on through dialogue, which, like I said before, normally would be a bad thing, but I think in this case, it adds to it. Musa can hear her mom calling out to her and asking her to sing with her, but then she exclaims how there's no music. Meanwhile, Tekna is hearing like all sorts of like weird techno and robot noises that just sound really inhuman. And once again, there was a really good scream. The scream that Tekna had while being suffocated by Code was really uncomfortable. So there were actually some surprisingly good performances in this episode. I don't know if I'll be able to watch the original the same way again because I really, really do like the original, and I think I still do, but the screams do leave something to be desired, and the nightmare sequences feel just maybe a little bit too out of pocket since it's just a bunch of weird imagery and we're not entirely certain what's going on, which can be scarier sometimes, but like I said, I think in this case, the 4Kids version of telling you exactly what's going on actually worked in their benefit. To lighten things up a bit, there was another funny line that I noted. Stella has been traumatized by Wizgiz's pop quiz, apparently. She thinks that maybe this is a class assignment where the teachers are sending a nightmare beast to torment the fairies before Monday, which kind of adds from the last episode and shows how there was some real impact with the way that Wizgiz deceived everyone. And then there was another line shortly after that that stood out to me. Bloom is kind of unsure of what's going on with the tricks and feels like maybe they're targeting her. She even starts off by saying that this may sound self-centered, and then goes on to say that She thinks that maybe they're targeting her and maybe they know more about her than she does. To which Stella replies, "Not to steal your fire or anything, Bloom, but I think they're after me." Which I was not expecting at all. There's kind of like a big tug of war between Bloom and Stella on who exactly is the main character of this series, which I thought was funny. Pretty much done with everything that I thought about this episode. There were 2 other lines that I found funny though, so I'll go through those real quick. At one point, the Winx can't find the monster, but then they almost get crushed by it and are just barely able to escape. Right after that, Stella shouts, "We found it!" Which, it isn't like crazy good writing or anything, but her performance really sold it. It got a laugh out of me. And then lastly, when the Tricks are really upset after getting caught by Farragonda, Stormy exclaims how she's just trying to look on the dark side of things, which once again, it is not super clever writing. It is really cheesy, but I just really liked it, especially with the delivery. So yeah, this was a really enjoyable watch. It blew my expectations out of the water. Granted, my expectations were low, but in some ways, I think I prefer this more than the Cinelume version now, which I didn't think was possible. I do think that the pacing and the music is better in the original. The score that they have in that episode is really unsettling, and I think one of the better pieces of the musical score from the earlier seasons. However, I think in the 4Kids version, the dialogue and performances from the voice actors just really enhanced the episode and took it to a new level, so I'm really grateful that I checked out this version. And that's all I have to say for these batch of episodes. It was a really, really good watch this time around. I'm super happy that I got to experience the 4Kids version, because these were some of my favorite episodes in the original version, and luckily 4Kids did not disappoint. So yay! Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, then please subscribe so you can join me on the journey to come. And if you like to support the channel, then check out my Patreon. Each patron gets a cute animated sticker that I made, as well as other rewards like early video access and access to videos I made that aren't on YouTube anymore. Before I sign off here, I'll thank my patrons real quick. Thanks so much to Toddy Fantasy. I know life isn't always sunshine and rainbows, but as always, I hope I'm able to send a little bit of positivity your way. I'll see you guys on the next one, and don't forget to keep a little magic in your life.